Hi, everyone. We're talking about curriculum essentials in this chapter, and it's kind of an overview of everything that we've been talking about for the last 9 chapters. I picked out some PowerPoint slides to kind of give you some more information regarding this chapter. It's interesting to note that the first thing mentioned is it's a play-based curriculum. We know, I hope by now, how important play is. That's how young children learn, and it is the foundation for their learning. Children must be physically active, mentally and emotionally involved. Play does that for young children, and they learn so much from cognitive, creative, social, and emotional when they play. What is your role? What do you need to do when children are in play? Be sure you have developmentally appropriate things. We know, and your project will tell you, that you will have learning centers. These are where children play and get the most benefit by having centers specifically allotted for individual and group play. Ways that you can facilitate play. I won't read every one of these, I'll pick out a couple, but we know that to facilitate it, you must guide it. There are many children who will not know how to play, and that is your role to help them learn. Also, be sure you have open-ended materials. Those are materials where there's not just one way to do it correctly. There are many ways which can foster children's creativity. For instance, the blocks are open-ended. Magnetiles are open-ended. The learning center, the home, is all open-ended, and that's what you want. A review of what curriculum is given in this chapter, and we know that it is a written plan that states goals, states experiences, and ways for children over a period of time. Developmentally appropriate. This is something that is very important to learn, to memorize, to have an understanding of. It must be age appropriate. In other words, a knowledge of child development. It must be individual. That means each child's individual needs are met, and it must have the social and cultural aspect. That means having a knowledge and including the child's culture and family. Several terms are used in this chapter that have been used previously. For instance, integrated. That means a holistic approach to your curriculum. You don't separate areas. For instance, you don't separate a child's social or emotional from cognitive or physical. It's holistic, and the curriculum must reflect that. It must be integrated. All right, that means basically having a holistic view, having goals and priorities, planning ahead, and having a way to evaluate it. Webbing, you may not be familiar with this term, but it's used a lot in our lab school. It's used whenever children are involved in a project, and it's a process through which the teacher develops a diagram. This next slide will give you an example, and this would be an appropriate thing for young children if they have an interest in birds. If you'll notice on the outer circles, it shows the individual areas where you can incorporate the project. In the Arts Center, you could have bird nests. The Writing Center, the Math Center, the Science Center, all of these areas could incorporate children's interests in birds. This is an example of a web. The project approach, we use it more than a theme approach. A theme is when a teacher decides ahead of time, well, this week we're going to do the theme of pumpkins. And so she gets everything ready without maybe even checking with the children if they're even interested in pumpkins. The project approach bases a children's interests as the very first way to go about a project. It can be a period of time. It can be several days or even weeks. And the children will work in small groups throughout this process. Your chapter discusses two developmentally appropriate curriculum models. It mentions Montessori, Bank Street, Waldorf, Reggio Emilia, High Scope, Creative Curriculum. I won't go into detail on these. I know your written assignment this week asks you to describe it, each one of these, and say something about them in your discussion for the week. There are videos in your course content for Chapter 10, and you'll be asked a short video on each one of these to kind of give you an overview of what they are. West Virginia uses creative curriculum, and they also allow high scope for their pre-K classrooms. And I do believe that's it. Thank you.